Welcome to the Naked Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, nutritionist Michaela Schifferly, the founder of KJ Wellness. On this podcast, we'll talk about all things nutrition and wellness. We'll cut through the bullshit information out there, debunk health myths, interview health experts, and give you actionable steps to help you become the best version of yourself. So go grab yourself a nice hot cup of coffee and strap in to hear the cold, hard truths about health. Welcome back to the Naked Wellness Podcast. I almost forgot A, how to start a podcast, and B, what the name of the podcast even was called, because it has been a hot minute since I have sat down to record a podcast episode. I will not lie, the end of 2024 really picked up. I got really busy, working crazy hours, something had to give, and unfortunately it was the podcast. But also I felt like I started this podcast because I wanted to have really impactful conversations. There is so much BS information out there about health, but women's health specifically. And there's only so much information that you can get across in short form content through social media, Instagram, TikTok, all that sort of stuff. And so I wanted to start this podcast to be able to have more in-depth, longer conversations that was just delivering real raw information about health. And I felt like because I was so busy myself, like that passion wasn't there. However, I was on the treadmill this morning and I was having this thought because I've been really craving to have some of these longer conversations again, which I love because I love the chit chat, but I was on the treadmill and it got me thinking because I've had the same conversation time and time again with quite a few different people recently. And it has been about them talking about how they've tried so many things to heal their relationship with food and become more intuitive with their eating, and they just feel quite stuck with where they're at, and they feel like what they've tried hasn't necessarily worked. And I found it quite interesting because with everyone that I've spoken to in this position, the same three key mistakes, I guess you could call them, that they've been making has been holding them back from actually reaching that real true state of being so intuitive with their body and having this real freedom around the food and fully healing their relationship with food. And I wanted to share this to anyone and everyone who maybe feels like they're in the same boat, because I definitely believe, and I truly believe, that having somebody to help peel back those layers for you, because if you're in my world, you would know that I explain this journey like an onion. You do peel back those first few layers and then you're like, there is so much more underneath here than what I realized was ever truly there, right? And having somebody to help you peel those back and get to the deeper roots of what's going on and what's impacting your relationship with not only food but yourself is really powerful. And it takes a lot of the guesswork out of the journey, and it creates a very clear roadmap of where you are and where you're going to get to. But if you are somebody who's not in that position, or maybe don't want that one-on-one support and that help to get there, then I do hope that these three, I don't know if I should call them tips or maybe mistakes that I constantly see people making, could help you to actually get to that other side and truly heal your relationship with food. So I'm going to dive straight into them and stop waffling on, because if anybody lets me waffle on too much, like I absolutely can do that. So the first thing that kept popping up with these women that I was talking to was they had been doing so much of the work of healing their relationship with food, and they had been removing foods down off the pedestal, and they had been challenging a lot of fear foods and food rules. However, they had not yet touched on actually healing their relationship with themselves and their body. And this is such a key part of this journey, because you can't ever hate yourself into healing, and you can't be trying to heal your relationship with food whilst you're still looking in the mirror and putting yourself down every other second of every day, whilst you're still body checking 1,000 times, whilst you're still telling yourself that you're not good enough and that these clothes don't fit anymore, and that, you know, you're pinching different parts of your body. Like, healing your relationship with food has to go hand in hand with you also actually healing your relationship with your body. And it can be a key factor that is missed to this journey, because many women start the work with food, but then they still feel the shame in their bodies. They identify themselves as being like this chronic dieter, or the one who can't be trusted around food, and they've never done that deeper work in actually rewriting their narrative about themselves. And so they have this belief, and then that leads to what I call weather reporting, in the sense of, it's like, well, I am a binge eater, like I will never be different, I don't deserve to be different, I can't be different, and whatever the mind believes, the body will actually achieve. So if you have this belief that you can't change, that you can't be different, that you have to be a binge eater for the rest of your life, more often than not, that is actually what plays out. So we have to change the way that your mind actually works, the way that you see yourself, this narrative that you have, and almost this identity that you show up as every single day. Because the reality is, you get to be somebody who's binge free, you get to be somebody who is an intuitive eater, you get to be somebody who has a really solid relationship with both food and themselves. And I know that when I was going through my journey, I really struggled to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I was like, is there, like, let's be real, is there actually a world where you can have a healthy relationship with yourself, where you look in the mirror and you don't tear yourself apart, where you put on a piece of clothing and it doesn't fit like it did a couple of weeks ago and you don't beat yourself up about it? Is there a world where I don't spend all day like telling myself I'm not good enough? Is there a world where I don't binge anymore? And I really struggle to see the light at the end of that tunnel. And I want to tell you that there absolutely is a world. But you have to be willing to do that deeper inner work to actually heal your relationship with yourself. You have to understand, what does a level of self-respect, self-discipline actually look like for you individually. And I am not talking about like army macho, let's put our weight vests on and crawl under freaking barbed wire type of discipline. I'm talking about you actually following through with the things that you say that you're going to do. You actually showing up for yourself and building that trust and having such a solid foundation with yourself, just like you show up for everyone else, right? And this is the thing where, you know, you might tell yourself, okay, we're going to go for a 10-minute walk today, and then you don't follow through with that. You're like, okay, I'm going to try a new vegetable this week, and then you don't follow through with that. And the reality is, like, if you had a friend and that friend told you that you're going to meet up with them for coffee at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, you're waiting for them and they don't never turn up. They're like, oh, we'll do it the Monday, like the next day, and then they don't turn up again, and then they don't turn up again. There comes a point where you're like, look, I'm done with this friendship. I actually can't trust you anymore. And that's a boundary that you set for yourself, right? Like, you've lost that trust with that person. However, that same level of trust is not going with yourself. You know, you tell yourself you're going to do something and then you don't do it again and again and again. And so you're not strengthening that part of your mind and your brain that is trying to build on discipline and respect. And then the other one is actually knowing how to sit in discomfort and to be able to regulate through your emotions. And I guess that's the word, like regulation, right? For a lot of us humans, we really struggle in uncomfortable situations. And one of those uncomfortable situations is emotions. We do not like to feel sadness. We do not like to feel frustration. We do not like to feel anger, which is why we all react in different ways, whether it's like yelling or screaming or like crying or whatever it is. And it's a really uncomfortable emotion to experience. And so for a lot of us, we want to try and get rid of that feeling and that emotion as quickly as we can, which is why things like binge eating or turning to food can come into play in that situation for a lot of people, because it's a form of distraction, it's a form of soothing and all of that sort of stuff. But you have to be able to regulate through that. You have to be able to sit in that discomfort and have that relationship with yourself to be like, you know what, like every storm passes. This is uncomfortable now, but we get to learn how to ride the wave. We get to learn how to regulate, how to not be constantly functioning in this really heightened state with high stress, high cortisol, like your body's trying to push down and suppress all of these emotions that actually probably need to be worked through. And all of this comes to you building a relationship with yourself, to understand that every single day your body is showing up for you. Like, you have to show up for your body as well. You have to learn what that level of respect is, and even like write that down. What is the definition of respect? When you think about respecting your body and you think about that respect going two ways, what does that really truly mean to you? Because for me, of course, yes, it means being able to fuel my body with all of the nutrients that it needs, getting my fruits and my veggies and my proteins and my carbs and my fats. It also means enjoying all of the soul foods, like spontaneous dinners out, dessert every day, like whatever that looks like. But respect for me also looks like pushing my body when I need to push, pulling back and resting when I need to rest. It means really focusing in on my sleep, on my hygiene, on my self-care, on actually showing up and doing the things that I tell myself I'm going to do, challenging myself, pushing myself outside my comfort zone, actually trying to become the best version of myself, to being so open to learning and growing. Like, I will forever say that I am a student. I will forever want to learn, because I feel like we never get to a point where we know it all. Like, I don't think anyone can, right? But that for me is my form of self-respect to myself, to continuously grow and evolve and push myself to do more, but also knowing when to pull back and rest as well. And so I think for you, it will be really powerful if you sit down and you actually look at, okay, what does this form of respect and care and acceptance look like for me individually? And where am I currently not meeting that? And actually being so incredibly honest with yourself, because you know, just trying to always shrink yourself and tell yourself that you'll be happy when you're a small size, or you'll be happy once you've lost weight. Like, you're never going to be happy, because your life's purpose is not to shrink yourself. Like, that's not a purpose of life, and it's not one that is fulfilling in any way, shape, or form. So that is the first one that I found, was this constant repetition of, you actually need to start to heal your relationship with yourself, and you need to have a relationship that goes two ways. The second one was that some of these women that I was talking to are still actually engaging in subconscious restriction. And this one's really hard to pick out, because the reality is you've probably peeled back a layer, and you've probably taken a whole heap of foods down off the pedestal. You've probably ditched a whole heap of food rules. You've challenged so much, and you're like, yes, I can have, chocolate in the house, and I can enjoy some of that every day. And I've had like the peanut butter sitting in the cupboard, and that's great. But you still choose the lower calorie option when you're out for dinner and you're wanting something else. You still tell yourself that you can't have bread more than once throughout the day. You feel guilty if you ever eat past fullness. You tell yourself, oh, I'll make up for it tomorrow, or I shouldn't have this afternoon snack if I'm eating out for dinner tonight. Subconscious restriction definitely can be there, and it can be there in ways where your brain has tried to justify it as something that is just healthy, and I do that in quotation marks, or it is just something that is like, it's okay, it's socially accepted, or this person does it, or this person does it. And there's so many times where these things can kind of almost sneak their way back in, and you have to be, again, so honest with yourself. And I guess maybe this is even the overarching thing as I'm talking and kind of explaining this out, of you have, like, honesty. You have to be honest with yourself. And it's really, really hard to sit there and be honest with yourself, right? Because it's you actually acknowledging, okay, maybe I'm not doing everything and fully surrendering into actually fully healing my relationship with food. Maybe there is still some sneaky restriction that is at play. And as soon as your brain feels any form of restriction, it feels threatened. And what your brain is going to do when it feels threatened is it's going to make sure that it protects you. And for a lot of people, that protection is actually like overeating or binge eating, because the brain is like, well, if you're going to put me back into this restricted state, like, I can't function there. You have to remember that your body is keeping you alive every single day. It is keeping blood pumping around your body. It is breathing air. It is like your livers are detoxing. Your brain is freaking thinking. Your body is doing so much. And you would never expect a car to get you from point A to point B if the fuel tank was empty. Yet you expect your body to show up at its optimal level when you're not actually fueling it consistently and adequately. And there's that restriction at play. Like, your body hates that. It feels threatened when it's in that state. Our bodies are not meant to function in a restricted state. Like, it's just not how we're designed, right? And so, like I said, it's literally a survival mechanism that as soon as your body feels threatened and it feels that restriction, it will try and protect you from that. So even if you allow food and you're like, oh, but I'm eating more, like, I've challenged all these things, your mindset might still be in this place of having this subconscious restriction that is at play. And that absolutely could be creating this binge restrict cycle that is just playing out subconsciously on a subconscious level. So, I want you to think about it and be like, okay, would I still eat this if no one was watching? Or would I allow, if you have kids, like, would I let my daughter eat this ice cream without guilt? 100%, absolutely you would, right? And so this is where I really want you to be honest with yourself. I always say, like, it's easy for us to respect ourselves in front of other people, right? But what are you doing behind closed doors? Because there shouldn't be guilt or shame. That shouldn't be invited to the table. You shouldn't be forcing yourself to eat something or not eat something just because somebody else is watching. And if that's the case, and if you're overthinking that in those moments, it means that there's absolutely still that subconscious restriction at play. And then the third and final one is that you're trying to change your behavior without changing your identity. So what this actually means is you still are calling yourself a binge eater. You still identify as somebody who doesn't have a healthy relationship with food. So even though you're trying to work through this and heal your relationship with food, you are still following and living your life with this narrative that you have given yourself. And as we said earlier, like, this is literally that subconscious weather reporting of you are narrating your reality in a way that keeps you stuck. So you might even say things, and it might not even be like the word binge eating. You might be like, no, I don't call myself that. But you might say things like, oh, I'm someone who just always ruins my progress, or I just self-sabotage all the time, or I just don't have control, or I'm addicted to sugar, I'm addicted to food, I can't be trusted with snacks, I can't be trusted with chocolate. And every single time that you say that and it's such a certain thing, eating, your nervous system follows that identity that you were then reinforcing, right? And then it just becomes a habit. It's like, oh, well, yeah, I can't be trusted with snacks, so I'm going to go and eat that bag of pretzels that are sitting in the cupboard. Or, oh, yeah, I'm addicted to sugar, so I have to eat that whole block of chocolate because I can't stop at one row. That is how the brain is working, and that is how you are wiring your brain. The brain is literally like a muscle. And every time that you challenge that, so let's say like you have a binge urge and you don't act on that urge, you are strengthening that pathway again and again and again until that becomes and plays out subconscious. But it also works the other way. You weaken that part of the brain, and you can also strengthen the other part of the brain that every time you have an urge and you act on it, you're strengthening that part, and that just becomes habit and it becomes second nature. And because then your brain doesn't really know much else, it's like, oh yeah, well, I have this urge, so we normally act on it, so why don't we go act on it? Or it's like, oh yeah, like I feel like chocolate and I can't control myself around chocolate, so why don't we just go eat the whole block of chocolate? Like, that is literally how your brain is working. The stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves literally become our reality. They become the habits that we form. And as I said, I know some people are like, oh, that's so woo-woo. Trust me, your body will achieve what your mind believes. Guaranteed. Every single fucking time. You have to rewrite your narrative about yourself. And so I want you in two different parts. The first part is I want you to write about, okay, what is this narrative that you feel like you're currently living your life to? So it could be that you feel like you can't ever have control around food, or you feel like you are addicted to sugar, or that you're somebody who always self-sabotages, whatever it is, right? And then on the flip side of that, I want you to rewrite, okay, what do you want your narrative to actually be? And so I know for me on my journey, and I talk about this with a lot of my clients, of I had the biggest narrative of I had to show up as somebody who, as I was studying nutrition, like I had to be the healthy friend. I do that in quotation marks because I literally look back now and I'm like, WTF. But anyway, and so I was like, okay, when I'm out and I want a burger, I have to order salad, and I have to say no to desserts, and I have to be the friend who brings the fruit platter, and I have to always be like exercising and working out, and I can't have sugar, and blah, 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 right? But then behind closed doors, I was doing the complete opposite of that. Like I was smashing the chairs, I was smashing the blocks of chocolate. I was like eating burgers in secret because I didn't want that to be my narrative, but it was this narrative that I had given myself, and I was like, well, I have to live up to this, right? And then the binge eating came into play, and it's like, oh, well, you know, I can't control myself around cookies. So if I bake cookies, I have to eat the whole tray of cookies. And it was just like, it kept getting worse and worse until I had to call myself out on it and be like, look, like, is this actually how you want to live your life? Because this narrative, it's almost as if I ended up living a freaking double life. I was trying to live this narrative that I'd given myself and show everyone else this version of me that I wanted them to see. But behind closed doors, it was something so incredibly different. And I almost felt like I was living this double life and I was these two different versions of myself. So something had to change. And one of the biggest things that changed for me was I had to realize, okay, by you living like these two different narratives, like the only person you're hurting is yourself. Nobody else actually fucking cares whether you order the salad or the burger out. People probably love it when you actually celebrate and enjoy dessert with them, because like we only get one shot at life, right? This is our one go around. And trust me, like now I hand on heart say I will never, unless of course I really don't want it, which is not very often. I have the very big sweet tooth, but I love dessert. I have it every single day. Like it's such a simple pleasure of my life now, and I can't believe I went so long with like depriving myself from that. But I had to change my narrative to be like, no, I am somebody who gets to have a healthy relationship with food. And that healthy relationship with food also means having a healthy relationship with myself, to be able to be in a body that I accept and I respect and I take care of every single day. And I do not believe a level of care for my body was restriction in any way, shape or form, because I couldn't show up. I was moody, I had low energy, I crashed at 3-4 p.m. every single night. Like I couldn't work properly, I couldn't show up as a good friend, as a good girlfriend, as a good sister, as a good daughter. Like I just wasn't that best version of myself. Whereas now, like I don't, like, yes, I get tired, but I don't ever experience a 3 to 4 p.m. crash. Like I can work until really late into the evening. Like it's just, life is so different. And if I never rewrote that narrative of who I wanted to be and what I wanted my relationship with food and my body to look like I probably would still be living out in the old narrative that I had, which honestly kind of makes me feel a little bit unwell and gives me up like goosebumps to think that that could be the case, because I could not think of any, like I would never want to live my life doing that. And I guarantee you, I would never be 80 years old being like, yeah, I am so glad that I skipped all of those desserts. I am so glad that I was so worried about what my body looked like in that bikini that day that I did not go to that beach party or that pool party, or that I didn't go out for dinner with the girls on that night and have some margs because I was stressed about the calories. Like I'm just not ever going to look back on my life and think that. And I always say to my clients, like, I don't want any of us to be 80 years old and still be battling through this. Like, it's not how we're meant to live life. And this is our one go around at life. So it's so important that you do become that best, that healthiest version of yourself. So reframe to, like, I used to binge eat, but that's not me anymore. Or, sure, like, I used to be somebody who self-sabotaged, but that's not me anymore. And you get to work on yourself. Like, the coolest thing about life is that there is such thing as like self-development, as evolving, as growing, as becoming a different version of yourself. That's the coolest thing about life, is you don't have to be this one version of yourself for your entire life. Like, healing is a full picture. We have to take into consideration like our mind, our body, our relationship with food, but our relationship with ourselves. And so, yeah, these were the three things that I feel through all the conversations that I had were just the three that kept coming up again and again. And so if you're in a place where you're like, I feel like I've really tried everything, maybe these three things would be able to help you. But in order for them to actually help you, you have to sit down and you have to be so incredibly honest with yourself. Like, you have to be hand on heart, like, drop the ego and just be like, yeah, you know what, there is restriction, or yeah, like I don't have a good relationship with myself at the moment. And you know what, it's okay. Like, this journey is not meant to be linear, and it's actually okay. Like, don't expect yourself to have everything perfect, because then that becomes a perfectionism mindset, and I feel like it's a whole nother episode we could do on that. But anyway, I would love to hear from you. As always, pop into my DMs on Instagram, whether it's the Naked Wellness Podcast Instagram, whether it's my Michaela Schifferly Instagram, whether it's the Undied Instagram. So many ways to reach me. But I would love to hear if these resonated with you, if you took anything away from this. That would mean the absolute world to me. If you could like this podcast, that would also mean the world to me. I am going to try and make a bit more of an effort to come and talk more in these long form ways, because I really loved it. I really loved chatting about that today. I'm going to be completely honest. I feel like that was really needed. And yeah, so I would love to hear from you and what you felt, or if there's any specific areas of intuitive eating, relationship with food, binge eating that you would like me to dive into a little bit more, body image, then please let me know, and I absolutely can create some podcast episodes around it. But otherwise, I hope that you enjoy the rest of the day or the night whenever you are listening to this episode, and I will chat with you very soon. Until then, you take care. Bye.